The condemned oracle, the massive viewport of Nexus Prime, stretched across the entire wall, revealing the swirling colors of the Andromeda Nebula beyond. Dr. Sarah Chun pressed her palm against the cool transparisteel, watching the distant stars flicker like dying embers. In 12 hours, one being would die, and with her death, billions more might follow. The irony wasn't lost on Sarah that the most beautiful view in the galaxy served as a backdrop for such darkness. Her reflection stared back at her, a tired woman in her mid-30s with determined brown eyes and black hair pulled back in a practical bun. The simple gray diplomatic uniform she wore felt inadequate for the weight of what lay ahead. She was here as Earth's representative, but more importantly, she was here as the only person who believed in the impossible. Dr. Chun, the voice behind her was cold, mechanical. She turned to face Commander Brutus Kine, the Dominion Coalition's military leader. He stood like a statue carved from obsidian, his augmented body covered in sleek black armor. Half his face was replaced with cybernetic implants that glowed red in the dim light. "You're wasting your time, Commander Kane." Sarah nodded politely, though her stomach churned. "I'm here to conduct a proper evaluation of the prisoner. Earth's council has concerns about the rushed nature of this trial." Kane's human eye narrowed while his cybernetic one whirred, focusing on her. The creature spread panic across 17 systems. Her lies about some mythical cosmic storm cost us 3 military campaigns. Resources were diverted. Ships were recalled. Entire populations evacuated for nothing. The tribunal's decision is final. What if she wasn't lying? Sarah asked quietly. The question hung in the air, like a challenge. Kane's jaw clenched, the servos in his neck hissing softly. Thyra Vex is a terrorist who uses superstition to manipulate the weak-minded. Her execution will send a clear message that the Coalition will not tolerate such disruption. Sarah wanted to argue, to point out the flaws in his logic, but she held her tongue. She had studied Kane's file during the journey here. Once fully human, he had been transformed piece by piece after surviving a brutal alien assault. Now he was more machine than man, driven by cold logic and an obsession with order. Emotion was weakness to him, and Thyra's empathic abilities represented everything he had sacrificed to become powerful. "I'd like to see her now," Sarah said instead. Kane gestured to the security escort waiting nearby. "Captain Voss will take you to the detention level. You have 30 minutes. The journey through Nexus Prime's corridors was a study in contrasts. The station housed representatives from hundreds of species, each section adapted to different environmental needs. They passed through the aquatic zone where the Murtai swam in transparent tubes, then the high-gravity section where the rock-like granite lords conducted their business. The diversity was breathtaking, yet Sarah felt the underlying tension that permeated the station. Captain Voss was a middle-aged human with kind eyes and graying hair. Unlike Kane, he seemed uncomfortable with the situation. "Doctor," he said, quietly as they entered a lift, "I've been stationed here for 5 years. I've seen a lot of prisoners, but this one, she's different." "How so?" "She doesn't act like someone who's guilty. Hell, she doesn't even act like someone who's about to die. She just sits there, staring at the wall, like she's watching something the rest of us can't see." The detention level was a maze of energy cells, each one designed to hold different types of beings. Some prisoners paced frantically, others sat in meditation, and a few simply stared at their visitors with alien expressions that were impossible to read. But at the end of the corridor, in the maximum security section, silence reigned. Thyra Vex sat in the center of her cell, legs crossed, eyes closed. She was unlike any being Sarah had ever seen. Her skin was translucent, with patterns of silver, light flowing beneath like living circuits. Her hair moved as if underwater, each strand seeming to have a life of its own. She was tall and graceful, with elongated limbs that spoke of a species adapted to low gravity. Most striking were her eyes when she opened them, pools of deep violet that seemed to hold the depth of space itself. Dr. Chun, Thera's voice was like music, harmonious and layered. I've been waiting for you. Sarah stepped closer to the energy barrier. You knew I was coming. I feel the currents of possibility, Thyra said, rising fluidly to her feet. Your path led here, to this moment. You're the one who might understand. Understand what? Thyra moved to the barrier, her expression growing urgent. The storm comes, Dr. Chun. Not metaphorically, not as some vague threat. A real cosmic storm, born from the collision of dark matter streams. It will reach the outer rim in 6 months. The core worlds in 8. 12 systems will be consumed, their stars extinguished, their worlds turned to ice. The way she spoke sent chills down Sarah's spine. This wasn't the rambling of a madwoman. This was someone describing a scientific phenomenon with precision and certainty. The Coalition scientists have found no evidence of such a storm, Sarah said, though her voice lacked conviction. Because they're looking in the wrong places with the wrong instruments. Thyra pressed her palm against the barrier, and the energy field shimmered. My people, the Zephyrians, we evolved in the void between stars. We learned to read the cosmic winds, to feel the ebb and flow of gravitational currents. What your instruments see as empty space is alive with forces your science barely comprehends. Sarah found herself believing every word. Then why won't they listen to you? Because I am inconvenient. Thyra's laugh was bitter. The Coalition has spent 2 years planning their expansion into the outer rim. They've committed resources, made promises to member worlds, built their reputation on the success of this campaign. My warnings threaten all of that. So they'd rather let billions die than admit they were wrong? Power is a hungry beast, Dr. Chun. It devours truth as readily as it devours lives. Sarah's mind raced. Is there a way to stop it? The storm? For the first time, hope flickered in Thyra's violet eyes. There is. My people built something long ago, when the first cosmic storms threatened our homeworld. A resonance array that can redirect the storm's path, channel it safely around inhabited systems. But it requires a Zephyrian to operate, someone who can feel the cosmic currents and guide the redirection. Where is this array? On Zephyros Prime, my homeworld. But it's in the neutral zone, and the Coalition has classified it as off-limits due to ongoing territorial disputes. Sarah's heart sank. Even if she could convince the tribunal of the threat, the political complexities would make mounting a rescue mission nearly impossible. Thyra, I need proof. Something concrete that will make them listen. Thyra was quiet for a long moment, her eyes distant. There is a way, but it would require you to trust me completely. My people developed a form of telepathic sharing, a way to show others what we see. But it's dangerous for non-Zephyrians. The cosmic awareness can be ... overwhelming. What kind of danger? Mental feedback, neural damage, possibly death. Your human brain isn't designed to process the information I would share. Sarah looked at this being who was willing to die for her beliefs, who faced execution rather than abandon her warnings. If I don't do this, you die tomorrow and billions die later. That's not much of a choice. Dr. Chun, I cannot ask you to risk your life for my people's predictions. You're not asking. I'm volunteering. Sarah placed her hand against the barrier, mirroring Thyra's position. How do we do this? The energy field will need to be lowered. You'll need to convince the guards to allow physical contact. Sarah turned to Captain Voss, who had been listening to the entire conversation with growing alarm. Captain, I need you to authorize a supervised contact session. Doctor, that's against every protocol we have. The prisoner is classified as extremely dangerous. She's also the only hope we have of preventing a catastrophe. Sarah met his eyes. I know how this sounds, but I need you to trust me. Trust her. Voss looked between them, his internal struggle clear on his face. Finally, he sighed. I'll give you 5 minutes of supervised contact, but at the first sign of trouble, we're pulling you out. The energy barrier flickered and died. For the first time in months, Thera stepped out of her cell. She moved slowly, her hands visible, making no threatening gestures. Sarah approached her, heart pounding. Are you sure about this? Thyra asked. No, Sarah admitted, but I'm doing it anyway. Thera reached out, her translucent fingers touching Sarah's temples. The moment their skin made contact, Sarah's world exploded into sensation. She felt herself rushing through space, seeing the galaxy from a perspective no human had ever experienced. The cosmic winds were visible now, streams of energy and matter flowing between stars like rivers of light. And there, approaching from the galactic rim, was the storm. It was beautiful and terrible, a churning mass of dark energy that consumed everything in its path. Sarah watched in horror as star systems were snuffed out like candles in a hurricane. She saw the populated worlds in its path, billions of beings going about their lives, unaware of the approaching doom. But she also saw something else. A network of ancient structures scattered throughout the galaxy, built by the Zephyrians in ages past. They were designed to work together, to channel and redirect cosmic forces. Most were dormant now, but on Zephyros Prime, the master array. Weighted dot division faded, leaving Sarah gasping and disoriented. Her head felt like it was splitting apart, and she could taste copper in her mouth. Blood trickled from her nose, but she was alive. You saw it, Thyra said, her voice filled with wonder. You actually saw it. I saw it, Sarah confirmed, wiping the blood away. And I believe you, but believing wasn't enough. She had to make. Others believed too, and time was running out. Dawn was only 8 hours away. Asterisk the impossible gambit Sarah burst into the tribunal chambers like a woman possessed, her clothes disheveled, blood still staining her upper lip. The emergency session she had demanded was already in progress, with Judge Executor Vorthik presiding over a collection of alien dignitaries who looked less than pleased to be awakened in the middle of their sleep cycles. Vorthik was a massive being, resembling a cross between an octopus and a tree. His tentacles writhed constantly, while his multiple eyes fixed on Sarah with obvious irritation. Dr. Chun, you have disrupted our rest cycles to make some final plea for the terrorist. State your case quickly. Honored Judge, Thyra Vex is not a terrorist. She's a prophet, and her execution will doom billions of innocent beings to death. Sarah's voice carried across the chamber, steady despite the chaos in her mind. The cosmic vision had left her with fragments of impossible knowledge, and she fought to organize them into something coherent. Commander Kane's cybernetic eye glowed brighter. The human has been contaminated by the creature's telepathic influence. She's no longer a reliable witness. I volunteered for telepathic contact, Sarah said, turning to face the assembled tribunal. And what I saw will haunt me forever. A cosmic storm of unprecedented magnitude is approaching our galaxy. It will destroy 12 star systems, killing over 40 billion beings. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. Some delegates looked skeptical, others worried. Judge Vorthik's tentacles stilled, a sign of deep thought among his species. Even if such a storm exists, spoke Counselor Zentar, a crystalline being whose voice chimed like bells, the Zephyrians' warnings caused mass panic. Entire fleets were recalled, defensive positions abandoned. The economic cost alone will be meaningless when there's no one left to count the credits, Sarah interrupted. I've seen the storm's path. It will hit the Kepler colony first, then the Andromedan trade routes, then the core worlds themselves. We have 8 months to prepare. Impossible, Kane stated flatly. Our deep space monitoring arrays show no sign of any approaching phenomenon. The Coalition has the most advanced detection systems in the galaxy. Your systems are looking for conventional threats, Sarah replied. This storm exists primarily in dimensions your instruments can't detect. It's composed of dark matter and exotic particles that interact with normal space only when they're close enough to affect gravitational fields. She was pulling information from the telepathic sharing, facts that felt foreign in her human mind but rang with absolute truth. The Zephyrians evolved in the void between stars. They learned to perceive cosmic forces that other species can't even imagine. Their warnings aren't superstition, they're advanced science. Then why, Vorthic's voice boomed, did the Zephyrians not warn us through official channels? Why use this one being to spread panic? Sarah's heart sank. She had expected this question, but the answer was even more damning than she'd hoped. Because most of the Zephyrian race is dead. They were wiped out by a plague 3 years ago, engineered by the Coalition to eliminate their destabilizing influence on galactic politics. The chamber erupted in chaos. Delegates shouted in a dozen languages, their translation devices creating a cacophony of accusations and denials. Kane's human eye widened in what might have been genuine surprise, while his cybernetic one continued to glow with cold calculation. That's a serious accusation, Vorthic said, his tentacles writhing aggressively. Do you have proof? I have Thyra's memories, Sarah said, shared through the telepathic contact. She watched her people die, saw the plague vectors delivered by unmarked ships. She's the last of her kind, and she's trying to save the galaxy that destroyed her race. Telepathic memories are not admissible evidence, Kane said, his voice cutting through the noise. They can be fabricated, altered, or misinterpreted. The human has been compromised by enemy influence. Sarah realized she was losing them. The bureaucratic machinery of the tribunal was grinding toward its predetermined conclusion, and all her evidence was circumstantial or telepathically obtained. She needed something concrete, something that would force them to acknowledge the truth. Then let me prove it, she said, her voice carrying across the chamber. Give me access to the Coalition's deep space monitoring network. Let me show you exactly where to look for the storm's approach. Absolutely not, Kane responded immediately. Those systems are classified at the highest levels. No civilian, especially one compromised by enemy telepaths, will have access to Coalition military assets. Then we're at an impasse, Sarah said. You won't trust telepathic evidence, and you won't let me provide scientific proof. You're determined to execute Thyra regardless of the consequences. The consequences of letting her live are immediate and measurable, Kane replied. Panic, economic disruption, military disasters. The consequences of her predictions are speculative at best. Sarah felt her last hope slipping away. Then inspiration struck, born from a combination of human stubbornness and Zephyrian cosmic awareness. I invoke the right of substitution. Silence fell over the chamber. Even Kane's cybernetic eye dimmed momentarily. The right of substitution? Vorthic's tentacles coiled with confusion. That doctrine hasn't been invoked in 3 centuries. But it's still valid galactic law, Sarah pressed. In cases where the execution of one being would cause immeasurable harm to others, a substitute may volunteer to take their place, provided they can demonstrate equal or greater capability in the relevant field. You're not a prophet, Counselor Zenter chimed. You cannot claim equivalence with the Zephyrian. No, Sarah agreed, but I can claim something else. Through the telepathic sharing, I've gained partial access to Zephyrian cosmic awareness. I can sense the storm's approach, feel its destructive potential. More importantly, I know how to stop it. The chamber fell silent. This was unprecedented in galactic history. No being had ever voluntarily undergone telepathic integration with a dying species. Even if this is true, Vorthik said slowly, you would still face execution. The right of substitution doesn't grant clemency, only a change of condemned party. Sarah smiled grimly. I'm not asking for clemency. I'm asking for time. Execute me at dawn as planned, but first, let me prove that the storm exists. Give me access to the monitoring network for 1 hour. If I can show you the storm's location and trajectory, you'll know that Thyra's warnings were true. And if you can't, Kane asked, then I die anyway, and you can proceed with your expansion plans with a clear conscience. The tribunal members conferred in whispers, their various forms of communication creating a strange symphony of clicks, chimes, and electromagnetic pulses. Finally, Vorthik spoke. The proposal is ... unusual, but the right of substitution is indeed valid law. If Dr. Chun can demonstrate cosmic awareness equivalent to the Zephyrian, and if she can provide concrete proof of the storm's existence, the tribunal will consider a postponement of execution pending further investigation. Asterisk. This is madness, Kane protested. You're letting a compromised civilian access military intelligence based on the ravings of a condemned terrorist. We're following galactic law, Vorthik replied firmly. Dr. Chun, you have 1 hour to prove your claims. If you succeed, both you and the Zephyrian will be granted a reprieve. If you fail, both of you will face execution at dawn. Sarah nodded, her heart pounding. She had bought them time, but at the cost of her own life. Now she had to hope that the fragments of cosmic awareness she'd gained from Thyra would be enough to navigate the Coalition's most advanced sensor networks. Not an hour later, in the depths of Nexus Prime's computer core, Sarah stood before a holographic display showing the galaxy in all its glory. The Coalition's monitoring network was indeed impressive, with sensors scattered across thousands of light years, each one capable of detecting the smallest anomalies in spacetime. But they were looking for the wrong things. Using the cosmic awareness Thyra had shared, Sarah began to adjust the sensors, tuning them to frequencies that existed in the spaces between dimensions. Slowly, like a photograph developing in an old chemical bath, the storm began to appear. At first, it was just a shadow, a distortion in the cosmic background radiation. But as Sarah fine-tuned the sensors, adjusting for exotic matter interactions and dark energy fluctuations, the storm's true scope became clear. It was massive, larger than star systems, and it was approaching with inexorable certainty. Dear gods, whispered Dr. Yilmaz, the Coalition's chief scientist who had been assigned to monitor Sarah's work. It's real. It's actually real. The storm's projected path appeared on the display, a line of destruction that would sweep through the galaxy's outer rim before curving inward toward the core worlds. Every inhabited system in its path was marked with a red indicator, representing billions of lives that would be lost. How long do we have? Sarah asked, though she already knew the answer. 7 months, 18 days until first contact with the Kepler colony, Dr. Yilmaz replied, his voice shaking. 8 months until it reaches the primary trade routes. Sarah felt a mixture of triumph and terror. She had proven that Thyra's warnings were true, but the scope of the approaching disaster was almost beyond comprehension. We need to contact the Zephyrian homeworld immediately. The resonance array Thyra mentioned is our only hope. The homeworld is in the neutral zone, Dr. Yilmaz protested. The Coalition has no jurisdiction there. Then we need to make a deal, Sarah said. The storm doesn't care about political boundaries. It will kill Coalition and neutral zone residents alike. The next few hours were a blur of emergency communications, hastily arranged diplomatic contacts, and frantic technical discussions. The tribunal reconvened in emergency session, with representatives from the neutral zone joining via quantum entanglement communication. Sarah stood before the assembled dignitaries, no longer the desperate advocate she had been hours earlier. The cosmic awareness flowing through her mind had changed her, giving her a perspective that transcended species boundaries. She could feel the connections between all living things, the delicate balance of forces that kept the galaxy from falling into chaos. "Honored delegates," she began, her voice carrying a new authority, "we face a choice that will define the future of our galaxy. We can cling to our political divisions and let billions die, or we can work together to save them. The storm is real," Judge Vorthik confirmed. "Our scientists have verified Dr. Chun's findings. The threat is imminent and catastrophic." "Then we must act," said Premier Colfax of the neutral zone, his insectoid form clicking with agitation. "The resonance array on Zephyros Prime must be activated, but we lack the technical knowledge to operate it." "I can operate it," Thyra said, speaking for the first time since being brought to the chamber, "but I will need assistance." The array was designed for a full Zephyrian crew, not a single survivor. "I can help," Sarah said. The telepathic sharing gave me partial access to Zephyrian cosmic awareness. Working together, we might be able to manage the array. Commander Kane stood slowly, his cybernetic implants whirring. "Even if this is possible, the logistics are insurmountable. Zephyros Prime is 3 weeks away at maximum hyperspace velocity. We would need to organize a joint task force, overcome decades of political mistrust, and hope that an ancient alien machine still functions after centuries of neglect." "Then we'd better start immediately," Sarah replied, "because the alternative is watching 40 billion beings die." The vote was closer than Sarah had hoped. The tribunal ultimately approved the joint mission by a margin of 2 votes, with several delegates abstaining rather than taking a position. It wasn't a ringing endorsement, but it was enough. As the session ended and delegates began the complex process of organizing an unprecedented cooperative effort, Sarah found herself alone with Thyra in the corridor outside the chamber. "Thank you," Thyra said simply. "You risked everything for people you've never met, based on the word of a being you barely know." "I risked everything because it was the right thing to do," Sarah replied, "and because I could feel the truth in your memories. Humanity has always been stubborn about doing what's right, even when it's impossible." "The journey ahead will be dangerous," Thyra warned. "The resonance array will require us to interface directly with cosmic forces that could destroy our minds. Even if we succeed, we may not survive the process." Sarah smiled, feeling the weight of her decision settle around her like a comfortable cloak. "Then we'll face that danger together. Human and Zephyrian, working to save a galaxy that barely acknowledges our existence." "Why?" Thyra asked. "Why are humans willing to sacrifice so much for others?" Sarah considered the question, thinking of all the human explorers, scientists, and diplomats who had ventured into the unknown to help others. "Because we believe that life is precious, no matter what form it takes. And because sometimes the impossible is the only option left." As they walked toward the docking bay where the joint task force was assembling, Sarah felt the cosmic awareness pulse in her mind. She could sense the storm's approach, feel its devastating potential. But she could also feel something else, something that gave her hope. She could feel the connections between all the beings working together to stop the storm. Human determination, Zephyrian wisdom, coalition technology, and neutral zone resources, all focused on a single goal. 4. The first time in galactic history, the impossible was becoming possible. The stars might fall silent, but they would not fall alone. Asterisk.